Hello everyone, it's that time of the year again, for which I will traditionally make this video, wishing you of course the best holiday season possible. Whether you are an old or new follower, you're watching this video by chance, whatever, I just wish you the most serene holiday season 23-24. I really extend that to, the people you love, like for all the wishes that you have, if you as I think humans are fundamentally tending ideally towards the good, right? And there is always a chance, right? Nobody is beyond redemption in any way, and this is, say, the positive that we can always get from the spark of divinity that is within us. So I appreciate enormously your fealty, your presence here, your support, the likes, the watching length, the views, and more. Right? I think that in the last years, that sense of community that I must say characterized Schwerpunkt since the beginning. In a way, there are some of you that stuck around since the very beginning in 2018, has increased, has developed further. There is a sense that the channel has, of course, is at least a point of reference, a sort of pool of information, but also a voice. Right, I know that at least I hope in a way that you're not here because of me, but just because of the things I say. But I do recognize that having someone that talks every day with the same tone, with the same sort of purpose and sort of balance can be yet another factor, especially considering that I've been going on for a very long time now, doing this daily. Every once in a while I take some vacation, I sort of re-upload the oldies that I still had to remake with better, with actually properly licensed images and all this stuff. But yes, I'm most of the time doing this next to my main occupation, and I must say that also for me, I've been quite open about this, in spite I don't talk about myself that much, but it has been of great service, great use, and I have definitely improved myself through the channel. Also, as far as my work is concerned, this has gone both ways. But I felt that it's not just about what I discuss, it's also, in fact, about the audience, those who interact, those who follow, those who contact through the comments or privately, who pose me questions. We have now a pretty hefty question and answer playlist that I'm glad to say I don't have all the time to in fact, answer. In fact, most of the questions go unanswered, also because I don't want to sound bad at Christmas, but yeah, sometimes, of course, I already talked about certain things, I explained them here and there, and or they're very easy to find, like it doesn't take my divine intervention, right, to answer that specifically. But jokes aside, yes, it's also about the content, right? This channel, especially this year, has doubled its subscribers, and this has happened because of, let's say, the channel has been circulating more, and now it has sort of slowed down, but indeed, having passed from 7,000 to 14,000 in less than a year has been impressive, and I count on, say, strange changes aside. I don't know what AI will bring, whether YouTube will become obsolete. Of course, I have everything saved, so whatever happens, I'll get to some other platform. But I also reflect, of course, on, let's say, how I can safeguard the content for you mainly, because I don't want to lose track with this community that I think it's not just that it's a community that appreciates the work, but it's also a community that has been cultivating themselves and the same content. And that is prone to keep growing, right? This channel never went down, like there've never been unsubscriptions. It's normal, really, for actually YouTube channel, but the trend has maintained, has always been constant, consistent with itself. So it's been, must say that in spite of all this larger number of subscribers, it's definitely not too much after all, considering all that I uploaded, but I can't complain. Of course, say that the majority not just doesn't watch, which is normal, but they don't interact too much. At least they do not come out in the open saying, well, look, this is what I think, whatever. Of course, I appreciate that as well, because I know that the silent majority most of the times is the one that at least pulls the cart and makes the thing work globally. I just sort of care about letting you know that I have, of course, a consideration for each and every one, because I don't treat this number just as a mass, even though I always complain against the masses. This is not a mass phenomenon. Like you have to reach at least the hundreds of thousands in order to speak of that. And in fact, I do consider you as a sort of select group, right? I see, fortunately, that there are some unsubscriptions every once in a while, so that the impression I receive from that is that those who have subscribed and stuck around are those who really care about what I am doing, and that really they can use my content in a profitable way. And I'm generally speaking satisfied. Of course, the channel could grow faster. There could be some sort of greater, again, interaction, sharing, all this stuff. But it's meant to be like that. It's the type of content that really takes it slowly, right? And I don't see anything wrong with it specifically. I usually make this video to reflect on, say, the current times, and say it's the fact that yet another year's gone by, and so one reflects on the lessons learned and think about the future, etc. Last year I felt considerably better than this one. To make the long story short, I have a substantial problem, nothing, let's say, irreversible, nothing. It's not about health. Actually, I've been sick this year. I've had a mild illness that, say, in there, nothing particularly serious, nothing I have to specifically be too wary of. Actually, it's gone away in the last couple of months without even having done anything specifically to cure it, right? And it happened, right? It was a sort of inflammation, but nothing to be concerned of. Rather, the problem I have this year is heavy, considering it involves, well, I will not be specific about that, but I will have to move from the place where I am. I don't lack the means, nor I haven't lost properties or whatever, but there's been a coincidence of factors, in part due to negligence, in part due to, and not even just on my side, right? It's just I happen to be part of a family, and properties sometimes can be managed in different ways. And even though everything will end without problem, it could take a couple of years. Something I'm not definitely thrilled to do. I was actually to move already from the place where I am, because I essentially wanted to exploit some other place I had, but it turned out this one was essentially occupied. We had to take legal action, and that's actually the problem. I ended up revealing it. It's not much of a problem. I just have to move because here there's been noises that, as you know, some of you, I hate, and so that's the reason why I have to move. And it's not bad. Like, my life quality is not going to to go down. Actually, it's going to make me a bit more self-reliant even. So that's what I'm looking forward for my life, right? Just I wish I had stayed in that place. It was sort of easier for me to just handle. Instead, there's been this problem. And I don't know, I am still confident that something could end before, like we have some process like mediation. There are some legal issues I'm not going to delve into, but let's say it's possible things will be fixed earlier. I'm skeptical about that considering the situation, the personal issues involved, but again, I will be streaming at some point, I'm sure of that, from that place as well. So nothing is going to change as far as Schwerpunkt is concerned. I count on doing this every day. I'm not a digital nomad, actually. I love my home. I love my sense of, connection with the institutions, etc. But I definitely like to stay on my own, to be working as I do mostly from my apartment and exploiting my, say, background to profit with that. Schwerpunkt is sort of a sidebar of that. I mean, it's actually part of the wall, but it's just a way that I used to keep mentally also focused on something else. I've been this year I published an article. I began to write a book. I finished now writing another article, will be published this next year. I still have 2 peer reviewers that seemingly on the holiday season get lazy, but they don't know anything about what I write anyways. It's not a concern. I also attended a couple of conferences. I mean, nothing, something I wish I had. These are all articles that I will have to write in the future if I want to fish them back from the list, but it's been piling up after the doctorate. I also had begun to write another couple of articles, and eventually I didn't finish them because I had a sort of mental moral exhaustion. Let's put it in this way, my heartbreak, the sentimental stuff that happened just at the end of the PhD, etc. So I just the last couple of months, like month and a half, have been hellish a little bit because of what happened regarding to the main problem I was discussing. And now I've been starting to calm down, but then I have to just fix other things, in fact, in the incoming months, and it's going to take time and energy and so on. But what can you do? Again, there is so much worse that happens that I really can't complain. If it weren't for the fact that this came on top of, say, some issues that I've been having also in my family, mostly some people were sick, and seriously so, and are also very old, and so I don't know, I don't have a sort of good say outlook on 2024. There's been serious health issues, and at the end of the day, not even so old people, but there have been surgeries scheduled. I mean, serious stuff. It will also have to involve my assistants, etc. So there are kind of things that do not present you with this great light ahead, right? When you're young, I'd say it's sustainable. I'm actually a very sensitive person, telling the truth, but it's just I don't manifest that, meaning that whenever I think about tragedies in my life, I remember ever since I was a child, fortunately I had a very sort of tragedies-free childhood, aside from maternal grandmother that passed away at the time when I was 8, that I loved very, very much. I mean, the whole thing has been, I've never lived with this sort of looming negativity, whatever. But since I really love the people around me, and I always fear to get heartbroken because of these situations, I've always sort of been preparing myself morally, spiritually, to this darker phase, right, in my life that for anagraphic reasons it's just mathematics, right? People don't live forever, and at a certain point in your life you just can't be the sort of worries-free young person that goes around, does whatever he wants, and this is the feeling I get from this year, that I was sort of finally and fully getting back on my feet after a couple of years of serious issues. Like after my heartbreak, I had like 1 year, 1.5 years of adrenaline addiction. It was really bad. I withstood it. It's always your fault at the end of the day. At least this is what I also acquired as a general, outlook on life. Like there is never, at least if you care so much about life, love, and people, there is never such a thing like somebody else's fault, right? You could always do something, and especially when it's about your own sort of. I didn't have mental health issues, but let's say when these things happen within your head, it's you who has the only power to fix them. Of course, talking to others, having them close, and so on, is quite important. But say it takes a toll on you, and this couple of years, in fact, also that mild illness I had this year was probably a consequence of those adrenaline rushes that I had. And now, just to come to fix that, I resumed substantial, physical activity. I'm a push-up fanatic. As you know, I practiced swimming for 12 years, but then I couldn't do that anymore because I don't have time actually with my work. But this year, I went to the sea for a couple of weeks, and I could swim. For the time I couldn't swim. I stay always in the water. To make the long story short, I hate the sun, but that's a reason more why I actually stay in the water. But I rigorously go to the sea either in June or September, like it was the latter case this year, because I can't stand crowded, loud, hot places. Right, and so I appreciate this sort of more melancholic part of the year, especially at the end of the season. And it was relaxing enough. I had to clear my mind because I really stayed a long time without traveling for moral reasons, because there was something that just didn't click right within me. Right, it all started originally with the travel bans during COVID, but it sort of extended because of the heartbreak, because of general exhaustion after the doctorate and all these other issues. I had to re-upload old Schwerpunkt videos at some point, as you know. So I had these blows that have been arriving in series, like these illnesses of my relatives, etc., have been coming like all in a row, almost incredibly. And so they added, and so it's not the individual thing you can handle, but it's all the thing together that sort of makes you like, my God, this is pressuring, this is agitating. And for the rest, I'm just like in real life, I'm just the same way I express myself. Here, people think that I'm even too serious, that I'm hypersensitive, especially when I'm in public. I have a way to completely shut down emotions, like but in a negative and positive way at the same time. Right, during conferences, people, just pose me because I'm like a statue. Don't express, like Philip IV, try not to express any, like the stoic apatheia, right, to prove that, the Apollonian ideal, right, the virile model, etc. It just comes natural, right? I'm an introverted person. I've never been a shy person. That's an interesting stuff. And I've been the last years improved the knowledge on myself a lot through history of religions, through spirituality. I have a history of taking vows, and I consider myself pretty lucky. In mind this sort of mechanism that happened. But over time, you also feel like, where am I going? Like, I've always had a pretty clear idea of where I wanted to, what I wanted to be, etc. But sometimes, when you're alone, to me, affection is the first thing. I'm currently like after my heartbreak, I haven't had a relationship anymore, and I haven't really needed it, because if you don't really find the right one, it's quite difficult. But that's a bit the sort of gloomy atmosphere kicking in, like the idea of, again, the world aging, all this stuff, because it's easy when you're younger to find the girl you like the most, but later on, persons get more built up, and so it's difficult to actually find a good match. And it seems to me like, I don't know, that young, I talk only to women, frankly, but this is something that applies obviously to everyone. Sort of young people especially are getting paranoid, right? They're getting sort of demotivated and have problems. We all know that. We listen to that every day. And this is one interesting topic, because whenever I make those traditional history videos, like about religion, etc., you see, the impression I get constantly from the media. I follow mostly just conservative commentators, at least in the last couple of months. I didn't have the time, but I'm a Daily Wire guy, just for Ben Shapiro telling the truth, and not even satisfactorily for him. At least there are certain turns of the role that he takes that I think are pretty dangerous in the American political debate. But I'm not here to discuss this, but it's been an old thing, right? I've been enjoying also those biblical exegesis series by Peterson, whose opinions politically on certain international issues I didn't like last year, but say this year I caught up a little bit with at least that biblical series with other authors, etc. And I like the guy anyway. And generally speaking, I sort of see that there is a sort of cosplaying going on. A lot of people saying, I'm a Christian, I'm a traditionalist, I'm a conservative, and a right-winger, because it sounds edgy, right? Because it's countercultural now, and there is naturally a reaction to the excess of the other side that, of course, has made too much damage, but just not in the last years, but from the same direction from quite a long time. But the real point about that is that you can't cosplay that. You can't quite claim something not having been born and bred in the culture, in the attitude, in the spiritual. I mean, everyone, as I said at the beginning of the video, is capable of achieving that, but the ways this happens, like, it's just, again, wearing a mask and not really asking yourself what's the price of being righteous and of making things work. So when things do not actually happen, succeed, or maybe you think you were doing well and something happens to you, you start perceiving the cost of pain, of suffering, right? There are certain situations where you're really, when your world is shattered, and in my life this has happened just in very fixable situations, not main tragedies or serious problems that people go through every day, quite commonly, and unfortunately. You understand really what's the value of being responsible for yourself, and how much self-sacrifice is really needed to obtain something, and what kind of balance you have to maintain in order to make things succeed. And there is this sense that doesn't matter how hard you try, it has a great cost, but everything is falling apart anyway. This is sort of it's maybe depressing, but it is, at the end of the day, the same reason why we celebrate Christmas, because this is supposed to, of course, to replicate that, to celebrate and to rejuvenate our sense of, in fact, the new cycle, the new era, the capacity within ourselves to really challenge, right, the reason why things are crumbling, that is, at the end of the day, our own same sin, right? And so always realizing this duality, what is that truly matters, right? Reevaluating the importance of prayer, for example, or going to church regularly. These are things that, for example, I myself I've never discussed really my true sort of religious history, personally speaking, but I'm definitely not, I say let's not go too far, but let's say I'm definitely not a good Christian. All right, let's put it in this way. At least I'm considered to be the good guy, but also about that there is not much necessarily the best picture. You should be the righteous one, right? Rather, so even putting yourself into trouble but managing to fix things that is better than simply preserving yourself. And so I sort of trust certain. It's about trusting God, but in the measure in which you trust yourself, because without that there can't be nor faith, nor grace, nor the accomplishment of works, and that's the greatest challenge that I sort of live every day, and measuring my limits as a human that are really the thing that make you see why certain things eventually happen to you. And so I've been at least having intense negotiations with whom, in order to sort of make a deal, even sort of changing my life when things will get better, will get fixed. I will have gotten through this whole thing, and what can I do about that, right? But also, time goes on fast, so sometimes you look back and say, well, I've spent a good part of my life now, and I'm still here, but that's the sort of, even though you're successful, even though you have really done what you're supposed to be doing, but still, many people, I suppose, wonder this, but when do I cash for that? And that's the actual problem, because it's not much about believing that bad things happen also to good people, to the just, right, the suffering just. But in that sense, understanding rather how much of that suffering stems from the lack of awareness of your own sin, right? Because nobody is immune from that, and so there is a social convention that is the one you could, in our age, mostly appreciate from social media, and so relating yourself to the misery you can find on it, and sort of making an evaluation and assessment. But the other thing is towards the absolute, it's towards the infinite, towards the truth, it's towards really the best person you can possibly be. And of course, divine standards are hard even to imagine, right? So, of course, they are. This is the sad part, like that it appears for us to be unattainable, or at least we used to think it was the case, but that's where the Christian paradigm eventually kicked in, and why it was Catholically recognized. And I never made a full video. There is something about the paradigm shift in late antiquity or something that made last spring, but let's say until you actually feel it as say going on with yourself, right? It's really hard to simply appreciate it in life. And I must say that that's the main difference with whom I was before, right? Before in my mid-20s, I would say I had a grasp of religion historically and theologically, etc., but I hadn't quite fully understood how deeply connected this was when you actually grow up and achieve what you do and acquire the awareness about what's going on. That's an entirely different story, and it is really painful, because later you feel actually much more capable, right, and much more successful. But at the same time, you realize too well how the let's say the limit, right, between what you can do and what you could do in potential really is, and so you're ever more tired in a way. That's what young people normally aren't, because it's not that they make that huge effort in the first place. They have a lot of energy. They're meant to sort of have this also emotional drive just for smashing into a reality and learn the hard way. But then, in fact, that turns very often, especially with those who from an early age do not quite care about working, about learning, about accomplishing something. The sort of the realization, it's too late. I think much of that lack of purpose that younger generations experience is not much due to say this sort of strange external, somebody else's fault kind of, again, explanation. Rather, because they have been raised in a way that fundamentally has convinced them that they didn't have any responsibility in what was happening to them. There were some sort of external, again, factors that conspire against them, because otherwise they're such great, good people. I've met even people that are older than me are reasoning like that and acting all pessimistic and surprisingly veering towards a leftistic, but actually both nationalistic and socialistic, especially for the left directions, when not communistic, etc., and sort of even sexistic in mostly in feministic ways, meaning, of course, there is some degree of toxicity from both sides due to lack of traditional upbringing, so understanding what that actually means or is supposed to mean. But there is the sense, of course, that there is no positive ending, that there is no way to make people cope with each other, and that everything is going to be a disaster anyway, so it's better if we tear everything down, because that's where it goes in the end. And simply, letting ourselves have a completely unfulfilled life and so on. But when you actually have the standards, it gets tiring. But you do feel motivated. You do feel as if everything was incredibly clear regarding your objectives, what you wanted. So just you start, you look around, and you do not find really anyone really wants what you do, or at least they may think they want what you do, but you want it the serious way, and other people don't know even what that is supposed to mean, right? So it's a path that everybody goes through in different ways. It's really the same one. It's just like reaching the same point in space, right, with the truth. But it sort of depends where you stand, right, from which point you started, at which point you really are at that, and how much you're willing to accept that you are actually going anywhere, right? Because most people seem to be rather lost, right? Like thinking that there is not really an end point, that there is not essentially a standard or a let's say an ultimate mission, duty, and responsibility. That's what we have been mostly raised like. The idea that whatever happens, it's not your fault. There are some bad people, but you're never the bad one yourself. It's always some sort of mechanism that went against you. Other people conspire against you. They have to repair you. But what did you actually do to fix the system? It's something that we should ask ourselves much, because in my opinion, moral standards, together with the scientific ones, have simply collapsed to an unprecedented degree. There is a sense of tiredness and exhaustion. I'm tired, but not exhausted. I guess it's normal, again, when you work all the time and you do not quite have much of another... when you're aware that that's the only way you can get anywhere, like that's that's a good place where to be. Just, of course, every once in a while you would like to see things going towards a very specific direction that you dream of, and that may not be actually happening. And you, again, at that point, you should ask yourself why that's not the case. It's not taking, say, you may think that this mindset makes one feel constantly guilty. And in a sense, it does, but isn't it a bit the point, right? When we make a mistake, we have learned something else the hard way, right? And would have we preferred not to know that, right? Not to have suffered, not to have learned that thing. Of course, if you had been told before, that's a very important part of the matter. How much you would like to go back in time, saying, I would like to have my older self telling me, look, this is the actual way to go. Don't do this, don't do that. But even at that point, you realize that it would it wouldn't work, because it would be just sort of advice that the person that hasn't gone through that wouldn't quite understand directly. And so there you start appreciating how much evil makes the difference. Because in theory, you're sort of tabula rasa, right? Somebody has to write on that tablet. But it's the negative still that doesn't align with reality, with the truth, that makes you crush into things and hate and hurt. And at that point, you realize that there's been some evil guidance that stemmed from yourself as an impulse, as a sort of will, right? Even if, say, when I was younger, I thought that ignorance and evil were two different things. And they aren't in practice, right? There is not an excuse for not knowing. Mostly because we sort of presume things without having actually the evidence for it, and say acting without reflecting on how things are much more complex and complicated than they actually seem. But they are only because we haven't solved them. We haven't made them our own to see how actually even much simpler they are, until we haven't developed those skills, that capacity, that power, and that process makes you age. And so it's a series of small defeats that eventually accumulate, and so you may be wise and all, but still you have the burden of your sins on you, and the ones of your ancestors, by the way. Which is yet another very interesting and dramatic thought that you have to go with, and that you have to accept being at some point very difficult to transcend, to fix. Right? Again, everything can be redeemed, but it's just like during the confession: how truly repentant are you? I mean, how certain can you be that you will not sin again, that you're truly saying, well, that thing I will never do anymore, until, say, it's a very big thing that you experienced and made you feel sort of bad for it. Of course, you can maybe of course avoid that, but say at that point the big thing would have been already experienced and done by you, for which you would have to pay the consequences anyway. You're already paying them anyway, but to the fullest. Like even a vow, even a prayer, that poses you in front of the big question. When again I was younger, my main point was during prayer asking God like why something was happening, or if I could receive a sign or whatever. So that was a sort of superstition, or at least it was in the measure in which you weren't trusting yourself merely to an external agency that immediately made you think, but what did I actually do to deserve this? So you can make a vow or whatever, but very often our demands are disproportionate compared to the actual deal. I mean, if something happens, something bad happens, the question is, why did it happen in the first place? And you can't simply bypass that by asking God, well, can you fix it, please? Because just I don't feel like now I should be having this. And we get all a bit hypocritical. We get all a bit to have nothing to do with that. We want to wash our hands, getting away from it. But if you stop thinking that what you should do during prayer is just becoming a better person fundamentally, and so just setting up your mind on what you should do to fix the problem actively, and then hoping at that point that God will be on your side when you do things in accordance. Well, that's when you have the actual vision necessary to take action. It's hard because most of the times, again, why are we praying even? It's because we're not acting. Really, we may be preparing for action, but that automatically also means that we're not ready yet, or we think that we're not, or that we're too weak, or that we're not going to make it, and that's a lack of faith as well. And so that's in theory why you should pray, in order to fix that, to realize that, rather than again hoping that something will happen just because you hope things to simply go well for you. If God was just a magic guy who can make you win a lottery for free, right? That's not what religion is supposed to be. It's about truly bearing your own cross and learning how to go, and why do you go with that, and where, right? So I'm young, not so young as in the past, but that much in front of severe pain I understood after all, and I think it's important for young people to understand that as quickly as possible. I mean, I wish I had this ethos when I was much younger. It could have even been dangerous. I mean, you get this ideology to a 16-year-old, and I remember at that time you're sort of even if you don't believe in God, you're a literal religious fanatic, right? At 17, 16, etc., you see the world like you are truly to be a martyr of some sort. Nothing can stop you. You're going to take that action, doesn't matter what. It's risky, it's dangerous, bold. It's beautiful as well. But imagine like giving a structured knowledge, systemic understanding of this traditional thinking to it's not just that it would be risky, because it's always meant to be risky. Like it's the way of the left hand. You have to risk in order to get a reward, to get the apple. You have to pass through the Dionysian in order to tame it through the Apollonian, transfiguring the whole system. The point is that in today's world, a person with that mentality would be considered crazy, or they would literally become ill for some reason, because we don't grow, let's say, up like with anyone telling us that. So we are all spoiled and soft and whatever, even in the least, let's say, affluent contexts. And when we're confronted with this necessity, we just can't cope with that, right? We get dysfunctional, we have problems of some sort, and so who knows what the hell I did say. I can't say crazy things in absolute terms when I was 16, 17, but almost getting myself killed, or doing something to the level of stalking, intruding somebody else's home just to leave a letter, right, to a girl I had fallen in love with, all this kind of strange stuff. I mean, no, it sounds much less serious than I term it, and I didn't believe almost anything what I say in the intensity in which I believe now, but I was just moved by this natural tendency, pulsion, and if you give that said really traditional thinking to the head of a guy like that, or or even a 21-year-old, this person really do become dangerous in many ways, because it's not much that it would be a negative thing per se, but we do not have exactly the guidance, the models, the paradigms to get that impulse eventually channeled towards the right direction, the right endeavor. Right? We do bear sin anyway. We cannot escape that. So it's as if you we civilizationally we sort of got more prudent, more cautious, by saying, okay, if we go slowly and hoping to bit by bit trying to fix this once at a time, of course we will never make it to transfigure divinely. That's the reason why from a couple of millennia we observe the reality for what it got, like in human degeneration, and we in fact entrusted ourselves to the Savior because of God's, say, still call to the example, rather than a passive one, like it fully got outlined only from the 16th century, basically. But we're so rigged by sin that now, even if you had, and that bit by bit, step by step, is too few. We can have, yes, greater quality of life, but we do not go that far anyway. We just have a sort of palliative measure to still cope with our existential problems that especially are exploding with mental issues nowadays because of even the excess, like in this comfort, in this disease of abundance, and all the stuff that are highlighting and are have corroded so much our guard that only the negative emerges, because that's always there, right? It's easier to make nothing than to make something, and so if you really stop working, that's what the direction will go towards. And if we provided instead, again, a single person that kind of drive, well, maybe if there would be the reason, maybe another couple of millennia we would be able to fix some interesting part of stuff. But immediately right now, at the lowest point, we would sort of have people's existence ruined, because whatever misunderstanding about the world, politics, war, society we have, it would be given that to have those standards you should have a perfectly straight line. Here, even a minimal angle of curvature with that power would lead us astray immediately. And so that's why you have so many, I don't know, how the world seems to go crazy with problems of any kind, with people that seem to have some sort of awakening call, but that end up failing miserably on a regular basis, and people are very confused about this in the world. They look at factions politically, internationally, etc., as if just the matter was evaluated, the faction, the side was evaluated in relative terms to the other, and not to the absolute standard. And so you have this sort of useless delegation of like simple cheering to groups that are actually not even doing what is needed to save you, to make you be better, and that's how deluded most people really are. And to the point that they actually prefer self-destruction than actually making something with what they have, especially in the wealthiest part of the world, that is also in this way the one that handles things. They're supposed to handle things more safely, but also better. All right, it does, generally speaking, but not necessarily. You can't keep this going on forever if it doesn't learn how to move and to do things the right way. So it's all very complex. And if you wonder what there is in my mind, well, well, there are lots of other things, and mostly more trivial ones in my mind every day, but generally speaking, everything is shrouded in this sort of reflection and perception, right? Anything physical, any weakness, any issue, any sort of mood, feeling, emotion, it makes me reflect on this. That is, why is that like that? What could I do to fix this? And am I not actually doing this on purpose, even subconsciously? And the answer is yes. And that's where all the problems of every person in every situation forever come from, unless you start fixing them. The rest is chit chat, right? Because when something especially happens to you, you can't abstract a situation from saying, well, but again, whose fault is this? Maybe it's more that other person. It's still you suffering the thing. So what did you do in order to avoid that? Why shouldn't have you been the one to actually get the thing done? Right? This is how it works when you fix normal problems, after all. So why shouldn't it be for the bigger picture even? I know it feels like it goes against any sort of personal, moral, cultural security that you thought was there, but it's also how things really are. And one may want to acknowledge that, right? And what can you say? Like, you see, this year, because of the aforementioned reason, doesn't feel like Christmas, really. At least I will try to make it feel like one. But there is that magic when you're a child, when everything seems, in fact, so shiny and promising, and remember certain atmosphere from like the tree, the light. I mean, that you always skip within yourself as emotions that remind you what sort of you're fighting for. And when you're loaded with these issues and you look at the thing during the holiday season, and you say, well, I know there is something beyond. I know that there is something, let's say that I can go back to and find new inspiration from. And that's, I think, one of the most important say steps you can take when you actually realize that that sort of mythical phase in your childhood, in the way you learn this thing. It's the origin of everything. It's the origin of all the issues. It's the, at least in between, all what happened is what defined you, right? And so the more you're able to reconnect to that primal vision and awareness and wisdom that is very deep and very intensely felt, the more you can see how what you think to be the more concrete problems right now, just an illusion of some sort, or at least they can't be handled in a way that you can really feel better about. I mean, it's extremely hard sometimes, especially, give it that, when there is no choice, when there is no option, or it seems that things have to just go one way and there is nothing you can do about that. That's the worst, right? It's it may seem like it doesn't happen often in life, and it doesn't that much, but if you think about that, that's what life really is in the end, right? Because there is apparently only one end, and so you can circle around that all you like, but the problem of what role you have in this world is always there, because you have only one shot, and a bullet has already been fired, and it's just going to fall somewhere much sooner than you would like, and the chances to redirect that are to you if you're able to, right? So it's that tough I don't know, I don't want to spoil your mood on Christmas. I would like to talk about how beautiful this is, the shorter days, at least if you live in the northern hemisphere, and north enough, of course, the colder weather, everything, all these moments that make you sort of more, they make you closer to the extreme, to the limit, to the sort of hubris that eventually with the solstice sort of ends. It sort of starts revealing itself as the light eternally rising again, yet again. And so thinking about that also as far as what you can do in that, guys, or in that light, and how, I don't know, I love sleeping. Just for the record, I love these days, especially when you know that there's not going to be much problems around in the first place. You can sleep with tons of covers on, just not having to wake up early, all the stuff, and just feeling like, this is really where I want to be. And that's good, right? If it helps recharging, etc. in your physical dimension, and also the moral one, of course, because they're all one. But then again, you have to wake up one day and making much harder decisions. So I don't know how you watch my videos, but I want, like, in part, with these with this content every day, to provide you with that sense of with a bit more of, for depending on what your life is about, with that sense of, like, we don't give up, right? This thing goes on, doesn't matter what, because there is something more important than whatever we think. And if we are able to get into it successfully, we will get somewhere where we can feel ever better, and we don't have to worry, let's say. We don't have to, at least we will have gotten to that level of safety, in a sense, that will allow us to take other important steps without worrying about this sort of menial ones. And that's the thing, right? Maybe my videos are, today I'm particularly sleepy, by the way. I don't know if you realize that, but I don't know why. I didn't get tired today at all. But I know sometimes my content is difficult to listen to. It sounds like this sort of low tone. Probably it's relaxing, even sleep conciliatory to some degree. But it has also that goal of providing the listener with that sense, look, things here are fine. Right, it's a place where if you actually stay long enough, you can learn a lot of interesting things, and at the same time reflecting on how these concern you individually. That's what for example, when I watch certain content out there, I don't like people who give that full security on the basis of a false promise. Right, again, as I was saying before, cosplaying, saying just you enter this group, so you're fine now. Somebody will pay for your sins. This is not technically even what Christianity is, even though it may seem strange, because literally Christ was meant, of course, to pay for your sins, but not necessarily with the consequences that you think that has for you specifically. Right, at least we have been, of course, fighting for centuries of confessional wars just to determine that. So, of course, we want to appreciate the importance of the matter, but it's really, in fact, relevant to everything we go. Like, again, this channel is not here to simply, let's say, comfort people, not offering them something else in that can help. One thing is helping a person by immediately taking care of the most important issues this person has. But eventually, if you really love this person, you should help her to to really stand up again on her feet out by herself and making her truly free. And at that point, truly free to live, to love, to interact with you in that way. So I think this is the true point, like that level of gentleness, but also that firmness, right? That resolution, that real determination that can come only when you have faith through wisdom in what you have learned about the world being the way it is, right? And so that's what Schwerpunkt, talking about politics, war, society, religion, is meant to offer overall. I know that my channel is varied enough not to seem sort of a doctrine or necessarily, it's definitely organic in the way, in fact, it's put together, but there is also, and obviously, the problem that I can be talking about medieval history, say late modern warfare, whatever. And so, well, the guy is just talking about this, is talking about this unit, or about this army, or about this guy, or this region, or whatever. But the point being very different in this regard, because it's all part of an ensemble. Like, if you watch my content thinking that this is pure information, like laid out without explaining even what that's technically supposed to be, just know that this is not really the place. The same is valid if you think that this is purely an ideological thing without backing, right? Without support, without evidence, right? There is definitely a meaning that goes beyond, right? And there is, in fact, a very specific purpose that I have, and that I have sort of always kept hidden in a way, because I haven't even began to talk about it. That, however, I think you can grasp if you really listen to everything I've done. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get, but it's also especially not easy to accept in a way. But it's, I think, the only solution. Again, yes, still we have a long way to go. My plan, as I told you, is to continue this, maybe even forever. I mean, I don't know what the future will bring with this. I count if I've began to make even a modest income with this, and so all earned after all. But I mean, there is an option. There is a room for a lot more on this channel, and I think it's important to envisage the possibilities that this has. Right? I don't brag about this specifically, at least in the way it may explicitly sound, but the concept that I truly never see any type of YouTube content like my own, which doesn't mean that my own is necessarily better or successful or it really works, right, to the point, but that in this sense is not to be found out there. Seems to me an important way to start, an important moment to start reflecting on the content, especially if you're a new subscriber and you do not know what I do and why I do it. Of course, I can standardly address you to the usual, let's say, historian playlist where there is all this stuff, etc. But it will never be enough without the historical content either. And it's something that we have built up over time, and it really does take a lot of time to do it. That's why I make all these videos in the first place. Overall, I think that, however, the channel works. I've had so there are moments in which things go better, worse. It depends, mostly on, of course, of the type of topic. From a month and a half, I've resumed the so-called cycle which I think is pretty funny because every day you have something new. You see the same thing without exception, but sometimes I used to insert specials that I had to choose myself, etc. And those are, it's not that they're going to end, but they are shooting with a slightly greater caliber, and I would like to save that for very specific moments. So if I say recently, which videos did I make here, that I'm a moment, for example, of few views, also because people, I don't know, maybe are out there still buying the last gifts, etc. They don't have time for Schwerpunkt. In fact, usually in January, views go up. But I don't know, maybe the Neophyte warrior, the Roman, the pontificate of Leo the 12th, or warehouses and siege warfare in the Age of Enlightenment are not necessarily the thing you would watch the most. But other times I just wonder, what is that you would like to see, because sometimes I make videos that I really like myself. I mean, it's not that frequent, but it happens with a minority of videos. But sometimes I say, well, maybe this topic, I realize it's not maybe the most attractive, right? You like mostly ethnic stuff or some sort of strange things of in tribal nature, etc. But sometimes I look at these videos and I say, well, look, this ain't bad. This isn't done bad. I explained the thing correctly. I kept it tidy, and it even gets to the point that I didn't think I would get at the beginning of the video, in terms of a new acquisition that will stick around. It will use to enrich my other content when I make it. And instead I see, but of course there is less attraction, right? And so I wonder what you really like, because this is, say you hear my voice, you don't see everything I do with the channel behind the scenes, or how I make the videos and everything. But let's say I also don't know what's going on behind your scene, right? What is that you would like to hear? Like sometimes I get people want very specific stuff, right? And the reason why I don't satisfy that is not much, as most of the times at least, it's not much because I don't feel for those questions, but that seem to be too narrow in a way, even for my type of content that, as you know, is pretty specific. But I'm really puzzled when I see people, even of certain nationalities, asking about details about another nationalities in a very remote way. I mean, talking nationality here because not necessarily there are people fixated with their own sort of ethnic courtyard, and say, I want to know what happened in that frontier in that specific century with and maybe they will not watch another very important video that talks about a much bigger deal, but that for some, in fact, interesting cultural reason they may not be interested in, right? That's something that fascinates me. Most of the times whenever someone voices these preferences, I immediately get usually what the background is, why this person is asking that, etc. And my first thought is, but look, there is this other stuff, consider it, right? I don't say it openly in my videos. This may be the first one, say, not the first time really, but in general, like trying to rationalize, explicitate this thing. But I'm also aware probably that there is an iceberg just beneath this, the say underneath the surface, that I don't see, right? What people truly think about the historical meaning of this channel is, and the sort of potential that it has, especially, right? So whenever you ask about a certain, like, the chances are that if you make a more elaborate question, you're going to answer it more likely, right? Because I have more details to discuss in it. So if it is a more comprehensive theory, again, I will at that point much more easily tell you, look, this is it or not due to this and that, and I can tell you why you ask that and what's the problem with that sort of origin of the issue. And I think that's the most useful way it can be, at least as far as the interaction with question and answer is concerned, right? So I don't know what effect it makes to see from the other side every day this new topic and the kind of appreciation of how varied and how themed it is overall, right? Just know that there are playlists that people do not seem to watch that often because they tend to watch just what YouTube gives them immediately, just among the recommended ones, and just my format is not particularly attractive in general for making people stick around more than much. At least I have a very high level of let's say watch length, but in percentage, but that's normal also because my videos are longer, right? In any case, the point being, is there structurally something that you would like to see also differently? Because I tend to structure this content very much more than it seems, right? So I'm very attentive to the balance of, say, is this is this country covered, given its importance as much as it should, and what about the others, etc. I have always this sort of kind of, not concerns, but it's just even for myself sometimes saying I want to be as objective as I can. I want to be well informed, as well informed as I can, and really providing with a clear picture that doesn't sort of distort, or at least through the way it's consumed, it can sort of provide with a picture that is not the one I intended. And that's something that I enjoy thinking about, but that in this sense takes a lot of energy in a way. Like I think it's all worth it, but I would like to understand whether from the other side this is understood or perceived. Because again, if this is just the channel which you hope that at some point your place will be covered just for the sake of it, just know that this is not the channel for you, even though it can happen. The content is not designed for that specific purpose. And the way that place will be covered, of course, is reflective of this. That is to say, I always try to find the positive whenever I illustrate, but there is a criticism as well that I make of every context. So it can be hard to listen to my stuff. I understand why some people can't stand probably what I do, because they can't really accept that what I'm doing is actually founded on actual historiographical substance, and that I'm going on sort of elaborating this in a way that I didn't think myself I could ever get to at some point, thanks to the same Schwerpunkt, and not only, but plus my work as a historian. So this is fascinating to me because it's I think it would build up most of the say, I like to be defiant sometimes. I like to be even assertive to the point of arrogance, to the point of, but I have to be that because after all I'm in charge of the channel. So I think if I weren't like that, I wouldn't even do this. But just know that it's part of the. I'm not acting. I'm not using a mask. I'm really much more, truthful in here than I can be. I don't know, formally in a public context, right? Obviously not. For understanding the differences between this and my work, that are two very different things, at least conceptually. But there is definitely a historian sort of secret passage here that connects both dimensions, and I care about how much of that you can protect, because I really want to make you feel within this. I really want to make you feel that every time you watch these videos, you are getting sort of the most, say, relevant, vital, significant, expandable historical wisdom. Right? This is very important to me, because that's what I want. I hate to be considered, for example, as an intellectual, or I hate to be explained by intellectuals. I'm a person solidly based on actions. I mean, even words can be actions depending on what they are. You can do a lot to words as well. But my ultimate point is always finalized to sort out things, to explain actually how things concretely are and how and concretely work, and in this sense, giving you a sort of hint of the level you can look at things through that is normally beyond what you're regularly provided. Again, and not to brag, but I'm convinced to some extent that I'm making in a sense at least, the best historical content on YouTube. And I don't say it again because I want a prize or whatever. I'm, again, content with what I do because I believe that everything I get, I deserve anyway. So that's the spirit. But I say it for you because, of course, I have met, even professionally, with the problems of essentially understanding things. I mean, it's what I was saying before, that, I don't know, even listening to the kids that get to the examinations at university, etc., the main problem stands in the way they have sort of built up a reality that reading a medieval history manual that doesn't quite exist, right? It's like, I don't know, a kid that can ask how long did the Normans, why did the Normans take so long to migrate, I don't know, from Normandy to Sicily, thinking that the 11th century was the migration year, and not understanding at all who these people were, the contractors, their origins, where they came from, what kind of context this is all. Because you see, there the person is ignorant, but he's making up a fake story to make sense of the thing that doesn't hold. And so the interesting aspect of it is that whenever you truly, I think psychologists do not operate like this, in fact, but I want to be incisive as well. I'm very confrontational, as a matter of fact. I try not to be, but I am, because you can't put yourself in trouble, let me tell you. But I would tell the kid straight what the thing is like, right, and why that is a mistake. And it can be humiliating to some degree, but maybe the kid will remember that. At least this is in part how it worked for me as well. But there are better ways of doing it, but it also depends where you want to go and how you want to go, right? If you also get too lenient, you give the kid the impression that they have their own freedom, but they doesn't matter how they use them. Well, that's not doing great to them in the first place. So I actually believe that when you have almost, I think, I don't know whether I surpassed it or not, 2,000 history videos on a single channel that is run thus by the same person, and that is definitely providing with an homogeneous interpretation of the same, and an ever more in-depth one, especially also of the same topics, that it's important to make that extra effort, right? I'm not in front of you, literally. I mean, you can re-listen to my content as much as you want, and understanding that I will not be there to judge you if you're just going to listen to me. And so I think, again, that's quite an opportunity for anyone to get, considering the type, again, of videos I make that I don't find anywhere else on YouTube, things the right way for free, or at least as a small price, that is the time. Well, that's not small, but say aside from the ads, I don't charge you. I don't use sponsors. I don't have hidden resources for only those who pay. There is none of this. I leave this free just as a policy. I monetized it only because YouTube monetized it in my stead, so I decided to at that point exploit it anyway. But this is what the channel does. This is what the channel brings in a way. So I don't know whether this is an appropriate Christmas gift, but I truly believe there is a meaning and a purpose in all this, and it's difficult maybe to digest. It's difficult to handle. Everything is long and it takes time, etc. But at the end of the day, it does have a point. At least in my head, it does, and it doesn't seem to me to really alter significantly at least we are all biased, but the notion that you would be, again, we discussed it just recently, that content wouldn't be historically accurate if it doesn't source, if it doesn't, if just the person expresses an opinion. That's pretty strange to me. It's complete novelty in an academic sense, meaning that at least it's obvious that there is all, especially for a YouTube video, going to be something like this, but that this has nothing to do with eventually the accuracy of the content per se at all, right? So I care about being extremely straightforward about that, also because that's why I always am, but especially about this. And what can I say? There is always a lot to learn from life, from everything, and I see this channel as I was saying, even as a way out of some problems. Like when I record, I have this moment of reflection, of recollection. I make sense of things. I have, let's say, a way of doing it that I think is relaxing, gets to the point, makes me leave this by saying, well, I wish I had stayed longer, maybe make even a longer video. But everything shall pass in a way, and so that's why we're not lying to people. We're not telling them that they can't do it on their own, they have just to stick around. Now, there is another dimension, and I think this is, say, how you make the most of it. I bring this on the table, and so it's up to you to make the deal. And it's all simple. It's all easy, right? You can always contact me. You can always, have this. I'm here. This stuff is public. I'm not going to take it away. So you're always at that point. So finally, I really come back to the beginning in wishing you the most beautiful Christmas, Happy New Year. I will, by the way, of course, talk to you later in these terms as well. I will wish you a happy 2024 in due time. Just, this is for Christmas. Usually I don't know whether I planned something for some sort of musical stuff for Christmas, but on Christmas I don't make the video usually, so I just will take a brief pause and or provide you with again, if an adequate content can suit. And the wish is really heartfelt. Many of you have really helped a lot with the channel, and through that I've been fine. I've been sort of fulfilled with what I do here. I know that you watch, that you follow, that you care, and that's an important thing for this whole enterprise, because it's exactly where we should be. And I really thank you a lot. Right? So I hope really for you to, I don't know your tastes, but just to be relaxing, under cover on the sofa in front of the cracking fireplace while there is a snow blizzard outside, sipping some good hot drink, surrounded by your affections in tranquility, and in all calmness, quietness, or at least if you want to have fun with, in not disturbing the neighbors like me that hate noises, but definitely relying on what you have always, that is much more important than we think. I think this is a magic time of the year in which you can appreciate that. You can recharge, you can really see what you're fighting for, and derive all the motivation, the drive, the purpose from it. I know that there are, by the way, lots of people that feel like they can't make it, that things are going to go wrong, that there's going to be pain and suffering, that life is not easy, that sometimes they see like a bleak future. And just know that even though I've been very lucky in my life, I think that I understand you to a degree. I have been through my things, I still am, and I always be, but this is a life condition. I can't fix the problem for you, at least I try. Whenever I make these videos, I think, how can useful this be for anyone, right? So I try, but ultimately you are responsible for yourself. What you have within yourself is much greater than all the problems you have. It may seem just cheesy things, corny things to say, like what the hell do you know about my struggles, my pain. I've known pretty up people in my life, like, say, people who had terrible problems, even affections. I remember, I mean, 3/4 of the women I got sentimentally involved with had a mental illness of some sort. This is interesting in inside. I formally don't have, at least the Navy says, but also some time passed from then, and I know how hard it can, like how terrible life can get. Really, even just looking at certain things from the external, you realize how terrible they are. Yes, there is always the card to think about who's worse than you, but I know that when you are actually suffering and there are lots of things going on, that doesn't quite help per se, right? It can make you look at things in perspective, which is actually the thing, really. But there are very concrete problems that our normal state of consciousness really appear like sort of this thorn in the side that is so painful and that can make us let go everything, and or bringing ourselves down, etc. That's simply not worth it. I think that there is always in the world the right way to fix things, and or to concentrate on what can be possibly done to develop, in fact, something that can make up for it. I truly believe that, and sometimes it's difficult to cope with people as well. Sometimes even the people we love, I was saying it before, like, you don't really know, like, nor anyone knows really what there is in somebody else's head. Like, we don't even know ourselves or about our own sometimes. So training ourselves in faith, in trust, is the only thing we can do whenever we want to at least be good with our conscience. when you realize you have done enough. It doesn't have to be all, because you can't quite be, but realizing that you had the upper hand morally, and that you, after all, still stand on your feet, you can't go on, and you have an option, you have yet another day. I think that's what makes it all worthwhile. It's again, it's not that easy. Again, there are things that can be much worse than anything one can describe, but just know that there is a way out, right? And that this can take any form. That the way it is depends solely on how willing you are to get to the truth and to realize what it is. Sometimes realizing is really the hardest part. It's really making room in our mind for something we didn't think we could accept. But that at the end of the day is the truth. It's closer to the truth, and it can't do but good to ourselves, and can really lead to some of the most magnific results if we really believe in ourselves as much as we do in the truth. So I can't quite. I would like to go on. Of course, it's important to talk about this. It's I don't know whether I will ever reveal. At least I plan, of course, to at some point to talk about things that happen, because there is a lot of, again, without personal experience, you can't even quite get history right. But there is also a way to consider the other, right? If you give space to the other in this sense, and if you believe that by improving the others you can improve yourself in the world, well, the most effective way is to try to speak, say, individually to the actual individual, but in general, like to so many different people, like I'm doing now, trying to get to the end of it, trying to get to the ultimate point, and making them know that we are all in the same situation to some extent, and that it's actually the difference in there within another extent that really helps in sort of bringing the things to the better end, right? So once again, I wish you the greatest holidays, all the best. I thank you enormously for what you do, and I really hope you will spend the most terrific time. Again, much love. See you next time. Bye.